Advertisements can manipulate things so much that even an absolutely unhealthy ingredient is presented as something valuable. And when someone is unaware, they might buy a supplement that actually provides the body with compounds that aren't necessarily good for their health. That's why today we'll be talking about vitamin D3 and how to choose it correctly. Why vitamin D3? Well, because this is actually one of those supplements that in our geographic region, practically everyone should be taking. And I think that many people already know that vitamin D3 plays a hugely important role in our bodies. And there are a huge number of supplements on the market. It can really be confusing. Today, I will present to you 4 very important aspects that you need to pay attention to so that you can be informed consumers. The first aspect, generally it's known that vitamin D3 is fat-soluble. I think many people know this, but just as a reminder, we should take it during a meal or right after a meal, and that meal should contain fatty foods so that the vitamin is absorbed very well. But that's general information. However, it's very important what form of vitamin D we buy. Because if a person is generally healthy and young, then buying the powdered form, like a dry powder in capsules, is absolutely fine, as long as the other aspects I will talk about are taken into account. However, older people or people who have any problems with their digestive system or issues with gut flora, low stomach acid, or, for example, impaired an overgrowth of candida or issues like diarrhea or constipation. Problems with the pancreas, where it doesn't secrete the right amount of digestive enzymes, or issues with the gallbladder. Anyone with any kind of digestive system problem should use a completely different form. An oil-based form, where vitamin D is already dissolved in oil, is more bioavailable and will be absorbed more easily. So older people and people with digestive system problems should pay attention to which form of vitamin D3 they are buying. And especially if someone is already taking a very high dose of vitamin D3 and still can't raise their levels, then pay attention to whether you're using the right form. Now, the second aspect, if we're already talking about the oil form, what kind of oil is it? And this is where most of the scams happen, because the cheapest supplements will contain sunflower oil or canola oil as the carrier for vitamin D3. Well, everyone knows that sunflower and canola oils are refined oils, which first of all contain quite a lot of omega-6, a pro-inflammatory component, and in addition, as is the case with refined oils, they don't give us anything beneficial. On the contrary, they contain certain substances that we definitely don't want to introduce into our bodies. And very often, taking advantage of the fact that most people are now aware that capsules don't necessarily have to contain sunflower oil, manufacturers are starting to use flaxseed oil and are really boasting about it. Look, we have flaxseed oil, and after all, flaxseed oil is omega-3, it's so healthy. Well, everyone, on one hand, flaxseed oil, cold-pressed, freshly pressed, it really is very healthy for us, but only when we consume it within a few, maybe a dozen days after pressing. Well, such oil is not used in dietary supplements. In dietary supplements, it will also be refined, because supplements usually have a 2-year shelf life. No one is going to put freshly pressed oil in there because it would simply go bad after a month. And in general, these oils, well, they go rancid, they oxidize. We don't want to put something like that into our bodies, so be careful about that. So what kind of oil should it be? Top-tier supplements, the ones made by producers who really care about the health of their consumers, well, they use MCT oil. It's derived from coconut, and this MCT oil, my dears, offers huge health benefits for our bodies. Some people simply use MCT oil every day to support their bodies. So MCT oil, which is very stable, doesn't oxidize, provides many beneficial nutrients for the body, and has a positive effect on our organs, also has a unique property. if it is used in capsules, in supplements, very often in various ones where there are also fat-soluble vitamins. But today we're talking about D3, so when combined with D3, it uses its amazing property of being absorbed directly into the bloodstream, bypassing the entire digestive process. That means that right away, the entire dose we use will be delivered to our body, and it will be a highly bioavailable product. Regardless of whether someone has digestive system issues or not, this supplement will work well. That's exactly the formula I go for, and that's why in my supplement, in my vitamin D3, there's MCT oil. And this is a dietary supplement that contains 4,000 units of vitamin D3 in one small, very easy to swallow capsule. There are as many as 120 capsules in the package, which means with standard use, it will last for 120 days, a full 4 months of supplementation. Of course, it comes together with vitamin K2, but I'll talk about that in a moment. I'll explain why I think that's also very important. But before that, I want to point out another aspect. Besides this amazing absorption thanks to the MCT oil, it's worth paying attention to this, darling. It might seem like such a simple thing, but what kind of packaging is the supplement in? Is it in plastic or glass? What do you think? Which one should it be? Someone might say that the plastic is just the capsule, and after all, we're not eating the plastic, we're only consuming the contents. But we have to realize that all the chemicals from plastics can get into the products contained in such packaging. And of course, when it comes to dietary supplements, this is plastic that does not contain BPA. One of these substances is very harmful to our bodies. But when I was writing my book about detox, I went through a huge amount of scientific research. And even if it is so-called medical-grade plastic doesn't contain this BPA substance, but it can contain other toxic components, which are often mentioned in studies as being present in plastics. It's just that they haven't been studied enough yet to write about them and talk about them openly. So if we're aware that plastic itself, as well as microplastics, not just the substances they contain, but the microplastics themselves, to prevent them from getting into our bodies, we should pay attention and try to buy supplements in glass packaging. This is especially important for oils because a huge amount of chemical compounds and heavy metals dissolve in fats. That's why we pay special attention to the fact that if it's MCT oil, any other oil, fat-soluble vitamins, or omega-3 supplements should only be in glass containers. Obviously, glass packaging, very high-quality raw materials, and a large number of capsules in one package all increase the cost of the product itself. But dear ones, our health is priceless, and we don't want to pay little for poison that will destroy our health. Well, that just defeats the purpose. Now let's focus on the aspect concerning vitamin K2. Should D3 be taken with K2 or not? There is also a lot of different information that you can read or hear somewhere on the internet. What do I think about this? Vitamin D3 and vitamin K2 work together because D3 makes sure that as much calcium as possible is extracted into the bloodstream from our food so it can be absorbed better. On the other hand, vitamin K2 makes sure that the calcium which has already entered the body goes where it should, to the bones, to the teeth, and that it doesn't get built into the walls of blood vessels, so our blood vessels don't become very fragile. This is very important. Some people say that we can get vitamin K2 from our food. Yes, in some food products, K2 is indeed present. And again, if it's a very young person, a very healthy person who uses just the basic smallest dose of vitamin D3 every day, then maybe they can even get enough K2 from their food. But the older a person is, and the more health problems they have, especially with the circulatory system or the venous system, for example, varicose veins or elevated cholesterol levels, some heart problems, blood pressure issues, insulin resistance, diabetes. When someone has these kinds of problems, their blood vessels are very badly damaged by these conditions. It's really important to make sure that we have enough K2 in our bodies in the right proportions. And if we're talking about getting it from food, everyone just take a look at this table. The highest amount of K2 in the MK7 form, which is the one we're interested in, is found in natto. It's a fermented soy product. I doubt that you eat it often. I think many people don't even know what it is or what it looks like. However, in other products, first of all, the amounts are definitely smaller, and secondly, pay attention to the form of vitamin K2. Here we have K4, K8, K9, but not MK7. We have to remember that it's vitamin K2 that prevents the so-called calcium paradox. It's the one that activates a certain protein in our body. Only vitamin K2 can do this, which makes sure that our blood vessels aren't fragile and that they stay elastic for a long time. This is very important for us. I think you'll agree with me. That's why I believe that the older a person gets, the more important it is for them to supplement with vitamin K. And it's also worth supplementing them together with vitamin D. Also, the more vitamin D we supplement, the more we should automatically increase the amount of vitamin K2. And the last aspect, which I think most of you already know, but just as a reminder, make sure that the product's ingredients are clean. What does it mean to have clean ingredients? Well, first of all, there shouldn't be any unnecessary fillers. They're only there to make sure the capsule is filled all the way inside. Chemical preservatives are also unnecessary because we want to use natural products that take care of our health. A natural preservative in a product where vitamin D3 is present can be vitamin E. First of all, it prevents the oxidation of all the ingredients that are inside the capsule. And secondly, it also takes care of our body because vitamin E is one of the strongest antioxidants with an antioxidative effect that protects cells and even has a rejuvenating effect. Thank you. I wish you lots and lots of health and see you next time. Natalia Samarek was with you.